Good afternoon. My name is Patrick Moore. In this video, I'll be introducing myself and mentioning some of the topics I think are important at the moment and into the future. This is the first video I've ever made, so it will be quite basic. What follows here is two or three pictures of me from the past. Following that, there is the picture by Bertolt Furtmeyer, Tree of Life and Death. On me, I grew up in County Kildare, Ireland, graduating secondary school in 2001. I then studied general science in UCD Dublin, graduating with a BSc molecular genetics in 2004. I then decided that I wanted to change direction, and I studied forestry management in GMIT Galway from 2006 to 2009. Following on from that, I worked in forestry at various levels up to forest management in Ireland, mainly afforestation on new sites as well as management and maintenance of existing sites. Since 2016, I've been working in various jobs, mainly as a security guard and general operative. During 2019 to 21, I completed a postgraduate diploma in forestry with Bangor University, part-time by distance, qualifying with a distinction. On a personal level, I tend towards solitude, hence my attraction to forestry and that sort of lifestyle, I suppose. And I try to reflect on situations as much as I can. I think a lot of decisions these days are made in haste. This characteristic is not well suited to the modern world, where everything seems to be moving faster and faster, and extroversion is much more highly valued than introversion. As seen over the long history of humanity, though, it could be argued that the slow incremental change brought about by trial and error and reflection on the costs and benefits of change has been the norm, or rather, it's preferable. I prefer nature to build structures, especially modern cities, which I do not think are conducive to a good life. In terms of the subjects that interest me, I have been exploring a number of different interesting subjects over the past few years. I spend a lot of time as an interested learner, learning about psychology and philosophy, mainly from figures such as Jordan B. Peterson and a lot of other figures collectively called the intellectual dark web. I also tried to learn about history, international politics, and economics as an interested amateur. Lately, I have been increasingly moving back to learning about the symbology and theology of Christianity, and also moving back towards Christianity. I'm a baptized but lapsed Catholic, although I think in my core, I pretty much always conform to the teachings I grew up with. In a general sense, I have a lot of curiosity about the world and where it may be going. The past 3 years have highlighted the fragility of the world and its economic systems, as well as supply chains, health systems, and a general decline in the West, in particular in terms of freedoms and the rights of citizens. The Ukraine war has put the West in a very difficult situation due to the measures taken by the Western governments in sanctions and in weakening the West's soft power and credibility in the world. This is not something that you will hear very much or at all in the Western media. It now looks like the Far East and China will take the lead in the world economic system, and this will be a major upheaval in the world order. In Europe, the member states of the EU are coming under increasingly centralized control from Brussels and the European Commission. The homogenization and lowest common denominator approach, pan-European, with imposition of liberal ideals on the national legislation and legal systems of the member state countries, has led to the hollowing out of the continent. Any regional or national variation in tradition, character, or morality is being eliminated. The challenges the West will face in the coming years will, I suspect, be unprecedented since the Second World War. The potential drop in the standard of living and status of the West will be a shock to a lot of people. In the era of increasing dominance of technology, artificial intelligence, and robotics, as well as a range of challenges with the environmental sustainability of the planet, maintaining a functional civilization fit for decent human beings will be a major challenge. This may seem like hyperbole, but having looked at the issues in play at the moment and into the future, I think it is accurate. I view the advent of technology such as transhumanism as a great evil, as it is an attempted inversion of the relationship between man and God. Decisions that are taken now could take us in the wrong direction very quickly. And if we make the wrong decisions at this point, it would be very difficult to reverse it. From Shakespeare's King Lear. Humanity must perforce prey upon itself, like monsters of the deep. In my opinion, the disappearance of Christianity from the West and the dominance of secularism has been a major contributing factor in the West's demise. I look at the modern West of immorality, celebrity culture, conspicuous consumerism, chaotic and damaging gender and sexual culture, etc. And I do not recognize it from the mid-1990s when I was in my teens. In a general sense, there has been an inversion of values and hierarchy. What was once wrong is now right. What was once immoral is now accepted. What was once elevated is now thrown down. Drug use, once rare and controlled, is now widespread. Surveillance and loss of privacy of citizens to both private corporations and governments is now common. It seems. Where reasonably strict social standards in family structure and social relations once provided structure and stability, now there is a general void where chaos and dysfunction reigns. If you want to get any examples of this, just look at a lot of the statistics about youth mental health, about marriage rates, about reproduction rates, about the ages that people are marrying, about how long marriages are lasting, about drug addiction rates, suicide rates, all of the metrics that you would measure a healthy society by. By and large, according to what I know, have deteriorated. The old gods are reappearing. It is like the Tower of Babel, and with the developments in technology and increasing state power, we are generally at risk of a dystopian society. Indeed, we are probably already there. In my view, the rediscovery of Christianity and the strong structure and moral framework it provides will be one of the most important factors in the success or decline of the West into the future. As far as I can see, there doesn't appear to be any viable alternatives. If you look at the hopes that people had for liberal democracy post the fall of the USSR, it's all just disappeared into a cloud of smoke. Russian President Vladimir Putin, of which I have a lot of criticisms, and obviously he comes from a different political system, which is much more authoritarian, which could possibly be in the Russian tradition. But nonetheless, he has made several speeches in the past few months in which he seems to be drawing a barrier between Russia and the West as far as social development. In the post-Soviet era, Russia has increasingly returned to Christianity and traditionalism. In speeches such as his Empire of Lies speech, he outlines the general view in many countries that, as I have mentioned above, the political leadership and the social structure and functioning of the West, which we seek to export at every opportunity, a lot of the time through war, is seen as destructive and dysfunctional and is leading to many of the ills we are now experiencing. Putin emphasized the disregard for international law and previous agreements of the Western governments, such as the agreement not to expand NATO, as well as the expediency with which tragedy and death on one side of a conflict is exploited, and tragedy and death on another side is ignored. Politics is now public relations in the West. It's spinning narratives, it's marketing, psychological manipulation via the media. and increasingly social media, it appears. Another quote from Shakespeare, King Lear. Time shall unfold what plighted cunning hides. The current state we find ourselves in had an inflection point at the fall of the USSR, with unjustifiable and catastrophic wars following in places such as the former Yugoslavia under Bill Clinton's watch in the United States, Iraq under Tony Blair in the UK, and George W. Bush in the US, the basis of which was largely fabricated at the UN through use of fabricated evidence, as far as we can tell. Libya, which, as far as I'm aware, had no sanction from the UN. Against Syria, no sanction from the UN, and several African nations. As a Western man, I do not see these criticisms of the West by a leader such as Putin as an attack. I see them as an opportunity for us to reflect on what we want to be in the future in the West. If his criticisms were being levelled in the Cold War period, it would obviously be a completely different response to such criticism, as at that point the West was obviously in the right position, the right side of things. I do not know if my contributing on these issues will make any difference, but I certainly hope it would. I've never made a video for the internet before. In truth, I do not have any social media accounts, such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. I do not have any desire for public profile, contrary to what seems to be the prevailing culture in the West at the moment of people seeking attention. So I'm just going to finish on a quote from Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He's one man who told the truth in the past, and he helped to bring down the USSR, Soviet Union. The quote is, "The simple step of a courageous individual is not to take part in the lie. One word of truth outweighs the world." Thank you very much for your attention.